Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for all of you who is listening to this live. I'm very happy to return to our second Q&A session to the on-demand virtual course Initiation into Spiritism. As you may recall, this course started early this year with the focus of presenting discussions based on the book by Teresinha Oliveira. How does that course work? Well, each week on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern, a new lesson is released. Spiritist speakers from all over the U.S. will address each, maybe 1 to 2 chapters of that book. And I'm very happy to be here today because we have an opportunity to have a live dialogue around the contents of lessons from that book from 6 through lessons 9, I'm sorry, 6 to 9. And I want to thank you for joining us today and want to welcome João Korngold, Luiz Vilaca, and Lígia Carvalho. I'm sad, but I have to inform all of you that our fourth panelist, Cynthia Fabretti, will not be able to join us today. Regretfully say so. But dear panel, I will send any of the questions that we collected throughout the past weeks that was directed to Cynthia to one of you. Let's see how it works. And just a reminder for all of you who are watching this live, we have received those questions already, but want to invite everyone, to please write any comments or additional questions you may have, and we'll have this panel talk. Now, let's start our live. I would like to ask each presenter, João, in that order, João, then Luiz, and then finally Lígia, to give us a short summary of their lessons. And I'm trying to think maybe 5 minutes, right? And we'll get started. João, can you come next and talk about chapter 7 and 8, Perispirit and the Spirit's action upon fluids?
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. It's a pleasure to be here to share our understanding of Spiritism and help in the dissemination of this beautiful doctrine. I presented in chapter 6 and 7 perispirit and fluids. So what is perispirit? Perispirit is nothing more than our spiritual body. It's a concept that exists for a very long time. Paul of Tarsus mentions it in the letter 1 to the Corinthians, that we have a physical body, a natural body, and then we have a spiritual body, because if there is a natural body, there is a spiritual body. But the term perispirit was coined by Allan Kardec in the Spirit's book in question 93, when he mentions that the fruit has the perisperm, and like the fruit, we have the intermediary between we, the spirit, and our physical body, which is the spiritual body, who belongs to us, the spirit we carry with us forever, and it serves as the model for our physical body in each incarnation. So it's not the perispirit that is a reflection of our physical body, it's our physical body that is a reflection of the perispirit. The perispirit has also transmits the sensations of the physical body to the spirit, and the actions that we receive on the physical body, the sensations, the reactions of the physical body, how we act in this physical world, will be reflected through the perispirit to us, the eternal spirit. the connection between the physical body and the spiritual body is a constant connection. So, for instance, we talk about passes in Spiritism, which is the transmission of spiritual energies from the spirits to us through a pass giver, an incarnated person. The passes will balance this physical body and spiritual body, because during our daily lives, we cause the unbalance of the connections between the physical and the spiritual bodies. So basically, that's it. The perispirit is our spiritual body, belongs to us. The spirit doesn't think. The spirit thinks, the spirit feels, the spirit has the emotions, but the perispirit is the vehicle that transmits these thought sensations to the physical body, and the physical body, that's how we act. So I know the questions will address a little more in depth all these concepts, so I'll stop here with the perispirit.
Awesome. Thanks, João. Thank you. It's a good intro of the lesson that he gave several weeks ago. And now we move on to Luis. Luis, can you please go next and give us a few, in about 5 minutes, summary of the chapter 10 of the book, which was focusing on miracle or phenomenon?
Sure, Marcia. Hello, everybody. Hello, Larry, Jusara, Paul, Paula, Annette, Tanya, Sally, and everybody else who's watching this. If you could be kind enough, yes, thank you so much. In order to help me, I picked up a couple of slides from, actually more than a couple, for my original presentation, just so that we can, remind ourselves what we have presented and what we have discussed. Lesson 10 had to do with miracle or phenomenon. The miracles attributed through the ages to people or things in a mystic way, are they actually miracles or phenomena? The key point here is that according to Spiritism, they are only supernatural in appearance. All those things that we might call miracles, connected to apparitions, to spirits, they are actually part of nature. There's nothing supernatural, nothing outside of nature in them. I had this image here. This is Chico Xavier, who with a medium called Peixotinho in his early days. And this here is an apparition. It actually appeared physically to everybody that was there through, the action of this medium. He was a medium with ability for physical mediumship. Anyway, the point here is that this is not a miracle. This is not supernatural. This is just something inside nature that people, at first look might think it's outside of nature, but it isn't. So they are just forces that we might not know that well. The great miracle that Spiritism performs, and this is not about miracle, but just a word game, if I might say that, is that the Spiritism explains to us the reasons of things and teach us how to become better in this universe that we have learned that we are immortal spirits. So how can we improve ourselves as immortal spirits? That's the miracle that Spiritism gives us, provides us with. That's probably better English. What is fate? That's interesting. Fate is a very difficult to define word. And actually, it was created in the 1200s, if my memory doesn't fail me. But anyway, faith is our belief in things, and would be, very subtle difference. But the important thing is that through faith, through our focused thought in things such as prayers, we can attract good things and we can perform phenomena ourselves. Some have more capacity, others not such evolved capacity. And through that, healing might happen and many other interesting things. So, moved by faith, those things happen. But Spiritism is very focused on reason faith. Faith in Spiritism, it's not blind faith. It's faith where we study, we learn, we understand, and through that we build something we call reasoned faith. And how do we achieve reasoned faith? And that's the faith that said can carry mountains, but we achieve it through study. We should study the codification, we should study the auxiliary books that have been transmitted to us through reliable mediums from non-benefactor spirits, because those communications allow us to have a better glimpse of what's in the universe and how are we, positioned in it and how can we improve. That's probably my brief summary, Marcia, if that's okay.
That's awesome. Thank you, sir. And I actually, you may have already addressed some of the questions, but we'll see where we collect from today's audience or based on previously collected questions. But I want to say thank you, Louise, and we'll move on to Ligia. Ligia, do you mind talking to us about chapters 11 and 12? And they are cause and effect and free will and progress.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Once again, it's great to be here. And it's great to be here with you guys as well. So my lesson is lesson 9, like Marcia said, chapters 12 and 11. And essentially, these 2 chapters were teaching us about free will and then also introduced and taught us about words like determinism and fatality. It was a study to help us understand if we are destined to have free will and if we have free choices, why are there certain circumstances that we face in life that really we don't have a choice? We're born in a certain family, or we are born with certain challenges, whether it be health-wise or disabilities, or we face certain situations in life, the death of a loved one, an accident. So how those 2 things play with each other. And essentially what we learn is we don't have free will from the get-go. When we are created by God, we are simple and ignorant, which means we don't have yet the ability to discern between right and wrong, good or bad. So the concept of free will is evolving as our intelligence also evolves. So in the beginning, we're not at the beginning, but we're not that far ahead. But in our earlier beginnings, God basically, through life experiences, through the the presence of our guardian angels, protecting spirits, created the experiences we need to develop certain abilities and knowledges, so that those knowledges and those experiences would teach us through that first chapter, law of cause and effect. If you do something good, the consequences are good. If you do something negative, the consequences are negative. And through the consequences, we are able to learn to differentiate between a good action and a negative action. So the law of cause and effect, with these experiences guided by God, teaches us or helps us to develop this ability to make these discernments. And the more that we learn, the more he gives us ability to choose. That's where the free will comes. But still, since we're not perfect, we don't have all the knowledge and understanding of his laws and how everything works. And truly, sometimes we don't know how to better assess a situation and determine whether it's good or bad. we still make mistakes. We still make poor choices. And those choices, through the law of cause and effect, will have consequences. But what we learn is we don't always face those consequences immediately. Some we do. You eat too much, an hour later, half an hour later, you got a stomach ache, you're nauseated, you're not feeling well. But sometimes those consequences, we don't see them until our next lifetime through reincarnation. And those are the anomalies or the differences that we see today. So like we said, if you have a disability, or if you facing situations in life that you just can't control, that you can't change, those are the consequences of the law of cause and effect for poor choices you made in the past, which are now reflecting in your current lifetime. But what is most important is, if we're facing consequences through the law of cause and effect that places us at a situation that we have no control to change what happened, disability, an accident, a loss of a loved one, we absolutely have the control of how we respond to it to build our happier future. So determinism may apply to actions that we have taken, but it doesn't apply to our future, in the sense that however I deal with things that are going on in my life now, the things that I do or don't do are the ones that are gonna really determine my future. So the future is still to be written by how we handle our situations today. So the recommendation is always, yes, you need to work and strive to overcome, but we should not be rebellious. We should not be angered. Those, you have the right to, but those would not be the best outcomes. The goal is to figure out, what is the lesson? What is this challenge that I need to overcome? And how can I become a better person so that the experiences that we have now actually turn into freedom-making opportunities in the future, which will bring our true happiness.
That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Lesia. Thank you, all of you who are here today. Are we ready? Can we go ahead and get started our Q&A? So with that, I would like to start. João, can we start with you today?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Awesome. Awesome. So João, you mentioned we have three bodies, right? A spirit, spiritual body, and the physical body. And someone asked before, I understand spirit and I understand physical, but not so sure about perispirit. And you mentioned earlier today, right? But can you perhaps explain more in terms of, is perispirit the same thing as your soul? Why do we even have to have that spiritual body?
Sure. Okay. So I briefly mentioned in the introduction the perispirit, right? The perispirit is really our spiritual body. Okay. So why do we have a spiritual body? Because for us, for the spirit to act on matter, it needs an intermediary. It's what binds spirit to matter here on earth or in other worlds. So it works as an instrument that allows the spirit to act both on the spiritual plane or on the physical plane here on earth. It maintains our individuality. It's important to understand that we individual spirits, we are eternal spirits. We have a spiritual body, the perispirit, which is, for lack of better word, semi-material. Not a perfect word because it's material. Everything that derives from the universal fluid is matter. So the perispirit is matter. But just to differentiate from our physical body, that is gross matter, we could say that the perispirit is semi-material. It's more ethereal than the physical body. It's more changeable than the physical body, in the sense that the spirit modifies it through its thought, and it acts on matter, the physical body. So we use the perispirit to act on our physical body. Okay. So it forms also the physical body. It's the matrix of the body structure of the physical body. Also allows spirits to identify one another in the spiritual world. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, we have several questions from the audience, so thank you, thank you, Sally and Larry. So let me. Do you mind if we keep on breaking down the same question with João? João, Sally mentioned, and there's a quote right from your lessons. It records the effects of every action of the spirit. It is the seat of memory. And please, can you, intertwine that with the idea of what this and karma form a form of memory? Sorry, I can speak today. My apologies, Sally.
No problem. Thanks, Sally. Nice to have you here, directly from Mauritius. So what records every effect on everything that happens with our physical body through the perispirit is recorded on our spirit, our eternal spirit. The seat of memory is in the spirit. Okay, of course, our physical brain has its own capacity of memory, but it's the spirit that records and it acts through the perispirit and the physical body. So again, the perispirit and the physical body, they don't think. They reflect. The spirit is the one that thinks, and it acts in relation to the world and through the others, the physical world and the spiritual world, through the physical body and the spiritual body. Karma, it's not exactly a form of memory. Karma is part of the natural law, the law of cause and consequence. So every action has a reaction. With the act that we make, we create a reaction, and that reaction is what creates the karma. So if I kill someone, I create a consequence for myself, a negative consequence, which is what we can call karma, which is a word that comes from the Eastern religions. In Spiritism, we use the word karma to make it easier, but actually we talk more about cause and consequence, action and reaction. So karma will create consequences for our future, and I mentioned a negative one, but also a positive one. If you do something positive, if you help others, if you practice charity, as explained by Spiritism, without charity there is no salvation, you create positive consequences also in the law of cause and consequence. So the karma itself, it's not a memory. It's a reaction of your actions that will create these consequences. I hope I answered, Sally.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Sally, for the question, and thank you, João. Because we would like to give time for the panelists, and I see Larry and Paula gave us questions. Larry, Paula, we'll do next time with João. We'll pick up your questions. They're very good ones, by the way. But on behalf of Cynthia, who's not here, and she spoke about gospel at home, I'd like to ask Ligia on the spot. Ligia, can you tell me what is the gospel according to Spiritism about, the book, and what its importance to Spiritism?
So, gospel according to the to Spiritism, it's one of the books that comprises the codification of Spiritism. It's composed of 5 books. The first one was the Spirit's book. The second was the Medium's book. The third one is Gospel according to Spiritism. The third is Heaven and Hell. And the fifth one is Genesis. And those are what you call the codification that basically gives us the understanding of what Spiritism is. So the Gospel according to Spiritism is a third one, and he really focuses primarily on the moral teachings of Jesus, and he helps us to understand what it is that Jesus meant when he was here with us. So in this book, it brings a lot of that consolation and the comforting aspect of understanding from that perspective, basically all of Jesus' teachings. You know, a lot of what he said has been interpreted throughout the ages. You know, and there has been a lot of different perspectives about the meaning of his words. And when we study about Jesus, you know, there's religions that believes in Jesus, others that don't. Some that, when we talked about the miracles and the experiences and the phenomenon, some believe it, others don't. And there's always a lot of contradictions amongst different religious perspectives. But the one thing that has never been questioned, and it still has not, and probably will not be questioned, is the moral actions and choices and words that Jesus exemplified. So the gospel according to Spiritism will help us to better understand those actions. Why did he do this? How did, you know, what was his thinking and interpretation for when he responded to this? So he really is a guide to understand the Jesus Christ, who we say it's our guide and our teacher. And he's the one that helps us in moments of reflection, when we're needing to question, how should I behave? How should I respond to things? We look to Jesus to give us that example and that path. And Gospel According to Spiritism will help us understand that. So it's a beautiful, beautiful book, and it's very easy to read. Some of the other books sometimes may be a little more challenging. I myself will say that sometimes with the Spirit's book can be quite, at parts, demanding, especially I personally am not super inclined into science and scientific matters. But the gospel, it's a really easygoing. And if you have a religious background, especially within Catholicism, or, you know, if you have been exposed to the Bible, you get a lot of those quotes. So I think it makes for a easy beginning if you have not been exposed to Spiritism. So it's a good place to begin.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Ligia. Louise, I'm going to get you next. You talked about miracles and phenomenon. So can you tell us, what is the definition? Can you break down to the simplest point? What is it? If you're telling me it's not, what is it?
Here,
You are on mute. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I hadn't muted myself. Maybe it was you, Marcia. Anyway, I'm an engineer by formation. So, yes, I'm very scientific, Ligia. Sorry about that. And one of the challenges when we are explaining and talking about things is to deal with the correct concepts, what a word actually means. This is particularly difficult in Spiritism. It's challenging we face every day. But that's not the point here. What's the definition of miracle? Actually, like many other words, it has multiple definitions. Sometimes we use it to, characterize non-usual or statistically unusual situations, like it's a miracle that she agreed with me, or it's a miracle that someone survived, whatever. So, but this is not really the core meaning of miracle and the meaning that, is in this lesson. Mm-hmm. The core meaning of miracle would be that something that's outside of nature, a phenomena that's not natural. A lot of mystical underlining in this miracle thing. Spiritist's point is that those things we call miracles, they're not miracles. The survival of the soul, the reincarnation, they're not miracles. They are part of nature. They are, inside the laws of the universe. Spiritism did not invent them. It just revealed them, like other doctrines before. I'm sure others will do it, but in its own particular way, a way that I myself identify a lot with, because it originated on immortal souls that, while discarnated, told us their view of the universe, to allow us to have, a reasoned faith on the survival of the soul. So that's the definition of miracle, but
Thank
it's not
you.
outside nature.
Thank you. Thank you.
I talk too much. Sorry about that.
No. This is a conversation, right, everyone? So back to you, Ligia. Now back to you as based on what we discussed previously, right? And it's really interesting because it's really weaving what you talked about with Sally's question, right? And João started to talk about cause and effect. But let's see. The question that I have is, what is the law of cause and effect? What should our attitude be when we're facing the results of law of cause and effect? So, Sally, I think Ligia may touch upon your questions regarding karma. Go ahead, Ligia.
And even the question, I think I see in the comments too for Larry that asks about the reflection of spirits. And I loved the explanation that João gave because you're absolutely right, Marcia, intertwines with the concept. So the law of cause and effect is essentially that every effect has a cause. So is the action reaction. I do something, that something that I do is going to result into something else. Everything is fluid and continuous. What we learn about the cause and effect law too is however strong my action is, that's however strong the effect will be. It's like throwing pebbles on the pond. You throw a pebble. If you do a good job, you will skip 3, 4, 5 times. If you don't do so great, you throw that pebble in the pond and it's like, whoop, it goes out. So that kind of gives us a visual of the cause and effect concept. So everything we do, say, and think responds to something correspondingly. The thing is, we don't always see the jumping of the pebble on the pond right away. Sometimes the results are immediate. Sometimes we see the consequences of what we do immediately. Other times, those consequences, they build up over time and they get addressed late in life or even in our next reincarnation. And that's where a lot of what João brought to us helps us to understand. We have our spirit, we have our body, and we have the mediator, which is the perispirit. So when I do something, and let's use something simple, a vice. If I smoke, we all know it impacts our lungs, impacts the tissues of our body. But it also, that action is going to infiltrate to our perispirit. So in my next reincarnation, that reflection, maybe, I only coughed until late, but I didn't die out of emphysema. I didn't die because of some other health related to my smoking. But I smoked my whole life. So that is going to be impacted in my perispirit. So when I'm in the spiritual world, planning my next reincarnation, and this is where free will comes in place as well, I'm going to say, I see that I made a very bad choice. Smoking is not healthy. It's not good for me. It doesn't bring any benefits to me, the environment, or anything. So you know what? I want to work hard on overcoming this challenge, and then I want to smoke my next lifetime. And I still have that reflection in my perispirit of all this smoke that I inhale, all those toxins. So how about my next reincarnation, I come with significant asthma. And just a disclaimer, not everybody that has severe asthma was a smoker in their prior lives, right? I'm just using it as an example. So I plan a really bad asthma because whether I want to smoke or not, I most likely won't because of my asthma. From early on in my life, I'm going to struggle with breathing, with toxins from the environment, which is going to push me away. So many times we may think it's a negative thing because I feel that conflict and that vulnerability of being an asthmatic person. But in reality, that is sort of determinism. And remember, we talked about God creates the environment that will give us the tools needed to overcome ourselves. So with that asthma that I struggle through my whole life, I probably will not smoke and will probably reach for healthier lifestyle because I'm vulnerable in that aspect. So here's my free will to choose what kind of lifestyle I want to have. And also, I think the second part was how to respond to it emotionally as well. I may be a person who's very somber and negative and frustrated because now, let's say, I can't practice sports, or I can't do certain things because I have asthma, or I can reflect, if I was born with a limitation, that limitation is here to help me learn to develop self-control. It's here to help me value something. What is it that I'm missing that I need to value? So the recommendation always to have that perspective of looking for betterment, looking for improvement. We're not saying you can't be sorry, you can't be upset or frustrated. Just don't remain frustrated. Don't remain rebellious. Work through it to get to the other side in a more positive note. And that's the concept of learning from our experiences so that our free will can expand. And what seems determinism really is the result of law of cause and effect, which we have chosen as part of the planning for our reincarnation to have the opportunities. Not that it's convenient, although I would love that if my life was always convenient, but to have the opportunities that will bring me growth spiritually and also get me to a better place as a spirit.
Awesome. Thank you, Ligia. And I could even do a sub question for you, Ligia, because this concept that you just talked about, we can talk over and over and over again. But it's going to be discussed in a later lesson, so we'll leave it there. Okay, so it will be our cliffhanger. Be tuned in our next releases of these classes. We do have. We do have a question. May the producer just put down the one that we have where Kirsten mentioned, I have seen that in our pediatric population who suffer from unexplained illness, such as lung disease in a 2-year-old. It doesn't make sense, right? As if he or she had been a 30-year smoker, only reincarnation can explain. So thank you. Thank you for your comment, Kirsten. It's really important, right, to understand. As Ligia said, let's not make the reverse explanation, meaning if you have asthma, you're a smoker, but let's sometimes when we cannot explain, especially as a baby, right, a 2-year-old, bringing some expression in the physical body. So again, goes back to João, right, João, where the perispirit communicates with the spirit and the body. And it's just really gives that proof of another proof of reincarnation in the immortal spirit. All right. So back to the question that I have, and it's going to go for you, João. How can the existence of a perispirit, and João, stay there because I also want us to talk about Paula's question, okay, after this one. So we had collected these questions previously. How can the existence of a perispirit be a proof of the immortality of the spirit? So we're all very fluid, collected the question as we're talking about it. So do you want to add to that, João?
Yeah. Actually, the immortality of the spirit, it's a law of nature, right? So the fact that when our physical body dies, we continue to live. The proof could be, for instance, in a near-death experience, right? So the physical body is a state of inaction, on a coma or on unconscious for some reason, and the spirit are outside our physical body with our perispirit, seeing everything that is happening, and then we come back and talk about it. There's the famous book by Dr. Eben Alexander that talks about his own experience with a near-death experience. He's a neurosurgeon, and according to his understanding, he could not have been living and thinking. So this is an example of how we prove the immortality of the spirit beyond the existence of the physical body. Of course, this only proves that we survive the death of this physical body. How can we prove that the spirit never ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to go a little bit with the reason faith that Louise mentioned, meaning understanding, accepting words from the spirits and understanding by means of reason that it makes sense that we are immortal souls because we go back to the spiritual world. We come into the new reincarnation. And in its process, we conclude that we are going to live forever. And that's the immortality of the soul proved, and the perispirit being a part of it as we go on. Okay?
Very good. Thank you. So, if you don't mind, if you can talk a little bit about what Paula had asked before, right? So,
Yes.
Paula asked, do you think the people who are causing so much negativity in our world are first time, or even, as you mentioned, that immortal soul, a very young soul who have no idea how to deal with things in this world?
Actually, it's not, Paula. Thank you for your question. Good to have you here. We are all old spirits incarnated on Earth, right? There are very few of us here on planet Earth. There are young souls. Normally, we would say those that born of the primitive souls that live still in very basic conditions. Maybe in the jungle or things like that. But most of us, we are spirits already on a good path of many reincarnations. The problem is that on our path of evolution, we have two wings, the intellectual and the moral, right? And the intellectual one is the easy one because you just add new things to it. You don't have to eliminate anything. You're just learning and adding. The moral aspect is when we have to eliminate our imperfections. And by eliminating our imperfections, which is the hard work, we struggle. It takes us more time to evolve. And according to what we learn from Spiritism, our evolution is not very fast, unfortunately. We wish it was, but we evolve very little from incarnation to incarnation. We are always evolving. The law is of progress. So if we look back 500 years ago, 600 years ago, when we were incarnating in the Middle Ages, in the beginning of the Renaissance, we were committing barbaric acts that nowadays we look back and we saw what the tortures and things like that, and things that were common now are the exception. This is the law of progress. So this negative view that people have on the world, and the fact that they think that we are moving backwards, that sometimes we listen and we hear, is the lack of our understanding of the law of progress, of the challenges that forces us to move forward, and that we are still struggling with our own imperfections. So we carry our tendencies, our bias, our preconceptions, and this act on us, it's brought to the forefront of our actions and thoughts when we are facing difficulties. So actually, Paula, just to wrap up, we are much better today than we were 100, 200, 300 years ago. For those that like movies, I always like to bring the example. I live here in New York, and if you watch the movie The Gangs of New York, it's a movie that is like 10, 15 years old. You see how life was in this place 130 years ago, something like that, and you compare to today. How can you say we are not progressing, right? Yeah. So it's difficult because when you are in the middle of the hurricane, you don't see the positive effects of it in the future. You have to look back, but we are moving forward. We are progressing.
Yeah, João, back at you, right? I was discussing with my father-in-law, who is with Alzheimer, right, symptoms, and he was talking about when he was young as a little kid without electricity, and this is the US this past century, not so long ago. So it's very interesting for us to see we are evolving, right? Just like the movie. For those of you who have not seen it, I highly recommend it, The Gangs of New York. Another aspect that you mentioned here, and it just brought my thought to, is the idea that we evolve very little or very slow each incarnation. And just wanted to remind us that nature itself, right, and nature is an expression of God, is very effective but not very efficient. We just have to think about a tree and all the seeds that it spreads around it, right? And it takes really just one or two to sustain the that tree for the next generations. But it spreads through its lifetime, and but it's very effective, right? Because of all the things, the environmental issues that will stop from growing. But anyways, good conversation. Jean, may I ask you to take Cynthia's, the next question, which was addressed to Cynthia. What is gospel at home?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
But first, before I forget, happy birthday, Kirsten. Thank you for participating on your birthday.
That's awesome.
So, according to Spiritism, the place where we live, our home, is a very important place. The energies that surround our home, we are surrounded by spirits, right? So, in order for us to have a good ambient in our home, a good energy, the spirits recommend us to do the gospel at home at least once a week. What is the gospel at home? Is one day every week that we reunite either by ourselves or reunite our family. We read a passage of an enlightening book, maybe the Gospel According to Spiritism, maybe another book, and we comment the passage. 15 to 30-minute meeting where everybody is together, where we elevate our thoughts. The protecting spirits of our homes are brought to attend. They are here with us. The spirits are in need of help, of assistance that may be influencing us. We'll be there also to listen to our prayers, to be assisted, to be removed from the bad influences that they are trying to bring to our homes. So it's a way of, if done, and again, it needs to be done in a sincere way, right? Coming from our heart, the prayers, the conversations, because prayer is a conversation between us and God through the spirits from the bottom of our heart. No pre-recorded words or anything like that. It's a conversation, right? So when Mother Teresa, someone asked her, when do you talk to God? What do you say? And she said, I don't say anything. I just listen. And the person asked, and when God talks to you, what does God say? And she said, God doesn't say anything. God just listens. This is from our heart to God, how a prayer should be. And by doing that, we create a protective environment in our homes for a period of time. Again, it depends on us to keep it, but that's the importance of the gospel at home.
Very good. Thank you. João, just wanted everyone in the audience to know that we've seen a little QA code, donate if you can. And this is just a reminder that if you think this class, which is a free, right? All of us are volunteering here. If you would like for us to continue this type of work for the future, and you can, please take the time to scan it on the screen and give you. Nothing is too small, right? It will help us with this mission that we're all here together. And I also want to take the time to ask Larry. Larry asked a question, And I believe Leisha answered. So, Larry, if you feel that she has not answered enough, can you just send us another chat saying, yes, I want to hear more? And also, I would like to acknowledge, in the same vein, right, where Kirsten mentioned that we really need to take the stigma out of illness. So they're interrelated, right? The physical defects, as a concept of reflecting your spirit, as well as what she said. We need to take the stigma out of illness, and we need to view it simply as an opportunity of growth and learning. So thank you both for your comments, your questions, and we'll move on with our previous questions, if it's okay. But Larry, if you still want to hear it, let us know. So we would like now to go to Louise. Louise, if miracles can be explained as an exemption from the laws of nature, right? We talked about it's nothing but how it works with the laws of nature. Can you perhaps describe, right, what are the laws of nature? Can you introduce what are you talking specifically about, and how are miracles defined by spirits? And I think you mentioned that already, but if you can go more in depth on what are the laws and how can miracles be an exemption or not from these laws?
I believe that it's very clear, but if it was not, miracles are not an exemption from the laws of nature, according to Spiritism. It's just the opposite. The universe is what it is. The universe is very large. We have difficulty with scale. We have, billions of galaxies, and each galaxy has, close to 1 billion stars. So we're talking to something awfully, large. And this is the universe, and it is what it is. Nature is, in a certain sense, built in. The laws of nature, they are built in the universe. But what we say is that the survival of the soul, all the things that are called as, outside of nature, they're not. They're just part of nature. But because we do not understand them very well, we are like, isolated people who live in isolated islands and see an airplane, or see, a Elon Musk rocket landing there. They have no explanation for it because they have never seen it. That's why we call some things miracles. We think they are outside of nature, but they are not. They're part of nature. We just don't have a good understanding of them as well. I don't think I am able to say what are the laws of nature. My knowledge is not, encompassing enough to describe them. But what we can say is that miracles, they are inside nature. Everything that Spiritism does is to try to remove mysticism from our understanding of the universe. Is that okay?
Yes, I think you answered correctly. Thank you, Louise. And I just want to say, sorry, I'm doing a Q&A session. We don't have a QA code. We have a QR code. My apologies. But I wanted to acknowledge a comment, and thank you so much. Paula mentioned to João that she wants to thank you, João, for such a long, detailed answer to her question. She did not realize it took us so long to grow on the planet and find our path of spirituality. So I second that, Paula. But we also have a question, and Leisha, if you could take that. Sally is asking about karma. So in the same question that we talked about, free will, determinism, and law, cause and effect, all concepts intertwining, Sally is asking Leisha, if wanting to improve karma, does the positive action need to be on the same topic, and I love the question, by the way, Sally, as the negative action was, such as a thief should now donate money to others, or could he have to save a life to make good? Do you want to take that away, Ligia?
Most certainly. So, love, God is all loving, and his justice is not quid pro quo, or is not tit for tats. You kill, you die, or you kill, now you have to pay for the family. Like the example, donate money to others. The ultimate goal is to find out the roots for those negative actions. What was the motivating force? Was it selfishness? Was it jealousy? Was it impulsivity? Was it anger? And then making amends in those actions through circumstances in life that will address those emotions. So if you killed somebody because of jealousy, you don't necessarily have to donate money, but you will face another experience that will trigger your jealousy so that you can control it. So ultimately, it's all about changing ourselves. So independent on what you do, anything that you do that's positive and that makes you give back to the world something positive will account for that which you have done. Obviously, if you have a way of mitigating, I'll give an example from Chico Xavier. He once spoke to a man that came to him and said, I am so desperate. I can't sleep. I'm full of shame and regret. I killed this man and I'm going to go into justice and I'm going to give myself in. And it had been a while, I guess, since he had killed that man. And Chico Xavier said, and meanwhile, he said, I've been helping that family. He had children. I've been sending them money anonymously. I've been supporting them. But this regret, this shame has built on me and I can't take it anymore. I can't face it anymore. And Chico Xavier spoke to him and said, the benefits of you helping the family, you regret it. You don't want to do it again. And now you're supporting the family. And what may happen if you give yourself in at this moment, that family will lose its support. And will it improve your sense of responsibility, your sense of regretfulness, your sense of wanting to make amends? So that is ultimately what God asks of us. Yes, we're not saying that justice should not be done, that we should all ignore the laws, that crimes don't need to be punished. That's a whole other subject that I'm not focusing on, and it's not what we're saying right now. But ultimately, what we're saying is the way to make amends. Obviously, you might have to deal with the person that you've killed. You may have to, like we said, face a disease. But ultimately, it's about figuring out what were the triggering forces that got you to make a bad choice and ways to change that while you're doing something positive to the world. We may not always have the opportunity to face those who we have harmed or hurt. So in the absence of those people, God will give us other opportunities. So the bottom line is do as much good as you can in all different situations. And eventually, whether small or large, they will mitigate to enough good actions to overcome the negative ones that you've done. And I hope that helps.
It's a good topic, right, everyone? It's very intriguing. I know that Annette was really interested in the quote from Mother Teresa, so maybe we can put that in the screen. And the quote says, Mother Teresa was asked, when you talk to God, what do you say? And she answered, I don't say anything. I just listen. And what does God say? God doesn't say anything. God just listens. So it's a very interesting dialogue, right, Joel? Of feelings, of silence, of communication at a different level. So, João, I understand from Larry. Larry, thank you for answering that he would like to hear more. So let's talk about his first question, which was, and I would like for you to answer, João. I would like to better understand the concept of the physical body being a reflection of the perispirit. It's hard, isn't it, Larry? When I first started reading about perispirit, I was like, what? I thought it was the opposite. So the question specific to that is, what about those who are born with physical defects, and he adds to that specifically, right? When a child is born blind, for example, or without limbs, does that reflect a defect in the perispirit? Good questions, Larry. Thank you for those.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Yes, it's very good and very important. And I want to turn it around. I want to bring, because we talked about the limitations of the physical body because of consequences of our negative actions. But I want to bring an example also how this can be done in a positive way, meaning we are in our reincarnation, we live in a world of trials and atonements, right? So our incarnation will have atonements, which are consequences for our past actions that we have to face the consequences here, or trials, which is lessons that we learn, that are new lessons, obstacles that we have to overcome to learn to improve ourselves. So let us think of a spirit that once loves very much a couple of other spirits and want to help them improve. And these two spirits are very selfish, very inner-centric, and they think only about themselves. So this more evolved spirit decides to incarnate in a completely challenged physical body that needs 100% of attention all the time. And those parents are those that are selfish spirits. So the spirit has no karma per se to be born in a challenged physical body, but it is a way to help the parents to learn to be less selfish, to learn to care for others, to learn to be of a service to others. So the problem in Spiritism is when we learn about cause and consequence, we look at everyone that is physically or mentally challenged as someone that has done something bad in the past. And it is many times the case. It is a consequence of our past actions, and it is a limitation that we or the spirits that are responsible for our incarnation impose to our physical bodies to prevent us to cause more harm for ourselves. So a spirit that is very inclined to do evil, very inclined to act on their inferior tendencies, it can be born with severe limitations to act on their free will, to learn patience, to learn resignation, through the impossibility of acting on their inferior tendencies. But how is the perispirit? I think Ligia covered a little bit, right? We carry the smoke into the perispirit and we bring to the new physical body. The perispirit is not challenged. The perispirit has the limbs, the perispirit has the lung working in perfect conditions, but in an eternal concept, but in a limited concept, because the mind builds the perispirit is in a way damaged, between quotations, because it doesn't really damage us, but it's just a matter to reflect the physical body, the limitations that this physical body needs to go through in the physical life. It's not simple. I hope it helped, Larry.
Thank you. So the next question is for Cynthia, and I would like Ligia to answer that. But before that, just want to clarify, right, again, I'm not thinking today, why do we have a QR code and we're asking anyone to scan and donate? It's really where we are here, right, to say thank you. Thank you for all of those who can scan the QR code that is on the screen, because it will help us produce future publications, as well as promote Spiritism to everyone. So, Ligia, you're next. So, what was the question that came to us previously to for Cynthia? And the question is, why should we hold gospel meetings at home? So, João said we should do it weekly, right, João? So, Ligia, why do we even need to do that?
Yeah, so the gospel at home is, we can consider it an intervention. It is a meaning that, like Joan had explained, in that moment, you have it every week at the same day and time. And it's you scheduling a meeting with the spiritual plane. Those spirits, they're here to support you and guide you. And they will come and they'll join the meetings with us. And essentially, it's a moment of studying, learning, but also changes in energy. The way that we like to describe it is think that you have a coating over your home, a cipher. I forgot what it's called now, the thing to like a thin coat over your home. Let's think that way, energetic one. With time, holes start to open up and energy and things starts to infiltrate. Those are the things that start to infiltrate energetically in your house. So when you have the gospel at home, in that moment where you're elevating your thoughts, where you're connecting with evolved spirits, where you all engage in positive thinking and you're praying, you can mend those holes and you create the protective, you reinstate the protective covering in your house. So it's a way to protect from the entrance of negative energy. Just like we locked our windows and we lock our doors and we come in and out whenever we want, when we're doing the gospel at home, we do the same thing energetically. So that's why it is important, because we cleanse energetically our home to keep it safer, to keep it more positive, to give us strength, because it's at home where we experience a lot of those feelings, whether we're going through tough times or good times. So ideally, it is best when all members of the family are participating in it. And it's important to hear the word ideally, but not always possible. Sometimes you have family members from different religions. Sometimes you live with roommates. Sometimes you may have a spouse or another adult that does not wish to participate. So, you shouldn't, it doesn't have to be obligated. So if you live with roommates and they're from a different religion or what may be, you choose your time. If you share a room with somebody and that person doesn't do it, do it when they're not there. Do it in the bathroom. It doesn't really matter. The objective is find a moment of peace somewhere where you can have, like Joan said, 15 to 20, maybe 30 minutes, depending how many people are there, to have a moment where you're going to read, you're going to pray, you're going to connect with evolved spirits. Now, the hard thing and the challenge that we hear a lot is, well, what about kids? I mean, I got two on my own. You guys heard them in the background. They're tough. And I think the misconception is a lot of times we think the gospel at home has to be the serious, somber moment of reflection and prayer. If you got kids, it's never going to be that way. So feel free to make it fun. If you got teenagers, you got to make it entertaining. So if you got little ones, bring coloring pages, bring a little book that can have some moral content that they can, read with you. Do like a game, do it under the table, so they think it's like the scavenger hunt of the moment. Make them understand that praying and reading about Jesus and his teachings and being communion with the Spirit is something positive and something that is healthy and that makes you feel better. So you adjust according to, the children in your family. And that's the importance. It's really a moment to, kind of cleanse and recharge energetically ourselves, our home, our family members. It's an opportunity for everybody to learn together about the teachings of Jesus, which reinforces those moral aspects that we need. And it's also an important moment to reinforce the importance of religion and religiosity in our lives. I think it's easy sometimes. We're busy with everyday responsibilities, school, work, bills, job, parents, or whatever it may be, that sometimes we tend to kind of put that in the back burner. And by having the gospel at home, we remember the importance of it and also the importance to living it as a unit if you have a family, if you have friends. So I think those are some of the important aspects of the gospel at home.
Thank you, Ligia. If I may, and this is going to be silly, but this was someone was talking about gospel at home. So if I may, I want to tell you because it was hilarious, and I never ever forgot. This person who was explaining, she said, "Gospel at home, really, right? It's a." It changes the energy. There's this for lack of a better word, a cleansing of your energy at your home because you're connecting with those spirits of light, our mentors, our with Jesus, with God. So it's a change the psychosphere of your home. And what this person said when she was talking long ago about gospel at home, she said, you know why you do a gospel at home every week? Because once it's done, it's just like when we finished a deep cleansing in your home. It smells better. It feels better. It actually has a like it's almost like you're in a different, a new home. But let's not forget, if it's once and done, it will get back to getting dirty and disorganized, et cetera, et cetera. So I never forget because it does make sense, right?
Yes.
That cadence of meeting to connect and changes that to a really good energy helps everybody. Anyways, I think somebody mentioned. Annette asked about the QR code. How do you scan it? So to answer to you, Annette, if you feel you or anyone who feels like contribute, and we help you in advance, just point your phone camera to the QR code, click on it, and that is that. Simple as that. So thank you for the question. So back to our next question, which came previously, Luis. We keep talking back about miracles. So, not miracle, but dude, we hear about Jesus and all the miracles that he did. Can you explain that? I'm confused as well.
Yeah, well, actually, the subject of the lesson was miracles, so it's not surprising. I would not presume to be able to explain the miracles performed by Jesus. So let's just focus on a little thing. Uh, One of the things that came from Jesus were the cures. Spiritism has very good rational explanation about the cures. That can not only be that were not only be performed, sorry, that were not only performed by Jesus, but are performed by other people incarnated, such as us, maybe, and they have related this to us. They have told us, they have written to us that cures such as those happen, actually based from two things, from what they call healer mediums that have this ability to perform cures of some ailments, and also by discarnated spirits that through a medium are able to focus their will and also perform cures of some ailments. The word used in Spiritism is through magnetism, but that's not, your refrigerator door magnet magnetism. It's one of those times where we, sequester a word, magnetism, and use it with a different meaning. It would be a force, a fluid, or whatever name we can decide to use, but we have been calling it magnetism, so it's a second meaning of the word. So the message here is that Jesus' cures were performed by a very highly evolved spirit, but they are also accessible to other spirits, such as us, and they are not miracles. They are inside nature. I believe I have. I said, Marcia, what do you say?
Thank you
You're,
so much. Yeah. So, Ligia, I think we have the next question for you. And I know João actually mentioned about it, so maybe you can expand to it. Ligia, can you explain the process of the dual growth, right? Intellectual as well as moral evolution or moral growth?
Yeah, João also touched on it, and he used the example, the analogy that we use when discussing intellectual moral growth. As spirits, we were created by God, simple and ignorant. What that means is with no knowledge of right or wrong, basically just like it says, simple with the potential to evolve. We will one day be perfect in the sense that we will hold intellectual moral perfection, relative perfection. And the analogy we use is the two wings to symbolize the ability to fly into this expensive, free motion of perfection. Now, intellectual moral growth, they don't evolve, they don't develop as readily, parallel, like intellectual moral growth go in the same speed. In our state of evolvement, usually intellectual growth goes faster than moral growth. That is why, if we just need to look at our world today, how many intellectual figures, how much progress we have made, how many scientific discoveries, technology advancements. But if we look at how that information is used, it's not always used for the betterment of society or for the progress of the well-being of the world and people. They could have been better applied in the sense of improving the quality of life of everyone. But instead, a lot of times they're not. I mean, one simple example that is always going to be used in history is if we take Hitler. He was an extremely intelligent man, but he did not use that intelligence for things that would be helpful or supportive to all humankind. He used for other interests. So through the experiences that God gives us, and then we put in the law of cause and effect, we put in free will, determinism, the concept of perispirits, even what Louise was telling us about the divine laws. All these things are in there to sort of create this structure that will expose us to a situation that will present us what we need in order to work at developing our intellectual or moral aptitudes. It's just like a muscle. If I sit in the chair and don't walk for a month, my muscles are going to weaken and I'm not going to be able to get up and walk. If I exercise my muscle every day, my body not only is going to get bigger, but it's going to get stronger. So our moral concepts and our intellectual concepts are the same. The more I learn, the more I'm able to learn, because I'm able to make better connections and I'm able to make better understandings. It's just like Luis said himself, I don't presume to be able to explain, the miracles of Jesus. He understands the concept much better than I do as an engineer. So I would say that he's up there and I'm sort of here, more on faith. And sometimes that's what it is. We need faith in the concept, even if I don't fully get it. So the more that we understand and evolve, the better we are able to learn and understand other concepts. So it's a hard thing for us to think, but we are like children. If we think of children, sometimes we explain things to them in a small way because we know they cannot digest in a bigger way. So it's the same with us. So the recommendation is study, research, read, ask questions. I think the important thing is dialogue. It's very difficult. Nobody likes to be disagreed upon. Nobody wants to be wrong, which speaks to our moral evolvement, the selfishness, the egotistical tendencies. And I'm speaking for myself. Anybody can, use my example as their own. But I think the important thing is the ability to have a conversation. And the more we read and the more we listen and the more we study from different sources, the better we are to do just like we learned in chapters 11 and 12, connect the dots and expand our understanding. But I think the important thing is we must be able to talk to each other. And It's okay to be wrong. If you're right, it doesn't matter if people believe it or not. But I think it's ultimately about trying to understand. That's why, once again, we talked about the gospel when we talk a lot about Jesus. We are all flawed as human beings, but Jesus is considered the one spirit that was perfect while on earth. So if we're not sure, if we don't know, let's seek him out. Let's try to understand him. How did he live up to the laws of God? How did he live up to the laws of nature? What did he taught us? And try to mimic it, because even if we're not sure, we're probably making the steps toward the right direction. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ligia. Spot on. João, let's go back to what is maybe a somber question, but a very important one, right? You talked about the immortal soul, the immortal spirit that we are, but we die, right? Our physical body dies. Can you elaborate on the process of dying?
Yes, we don't die. We are eternal spirits. What dies is our physical body. So let's first talk about two concepts: death and disincarnation. Most people think it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. Death is the extinction of work of the physical body. When the physical body no longer works, it dies. According to science, the latest development of science, you do you measure the brain, right? The brain activity. When there is no longer brain activity, the physical body is dead. Discarnation is the process of separation between the perispirit and the physical body. The perispirit and the physical body are connected molecule by molecule in the reincarnation, and disconnected molecule by molecule in the discarnation process. So this process, according to Emmanuel, the spiritual guide from Chico Xavier, takes up to 72 hours. So the separation between the physical body and the perispirit takes up to 72 hours. The death of the physical body, it's a different thing, right? So you have an accident, violent accident. Your body dies immediately. That's the end of it. The discarnation process can continue up to 72 hours, depending on the reason of death. Let's say someone is being sick for 5 years. By the end, the discarnation process, the physical body dies, and the separation of the physical body and the spiritual body can take another 15 minutes, and it's done, because it was already in the process of separating for the past 5 years. So these are the two separate things. The death of the physical body, when there is no more brain activity, according to the latest development of science. The discarnation, or separation of the perispirit and the spiritual body, takes up to 72 hours. The spirit is almost always unconscious throughout this process, with very few exceptions. Normally, if it's a more evolved spirit and it's interested in learning and studying more about the process, it can be, in a sense, a little bit aware of the process. But for the vast majority of us, the spirit doesn't feel anything in the death process, as we don't feel anything in the process of reincarnation. We are unconscious, in a sense. Okay, I hope it helped.
I think it does, and I think it's important for us, right? It's very difficult. Believing in reincarnation does not change the grief that we go through when someone we know passes away. But it's important to know a little bit more about this process. So thank you so much, João, for answering that. Just want to let you go to everybody know that we are about 6 more minutes that we have left before we wrap up. So last question, I think, is for you, Luis. If the goal of Spiritism is not to heal or resolve material problems, then what is it? And I think we talk here, great question, by the way, for who the listeners that sent to us previously. But Louise, I think it's important for us to maybe discuss certain misconceptions of what Spiritism is or is not. You are on mute, Louise.
Now I am unmuted. Well, let us just give a few steps backwards. What is Spiritism? Spiritism is the result of a small number of discarnated spirits that were not incarnated at the time, that around 1860 were able to share with us their view of the universe. And that has been compiled by Allan Kardec in what we call the codification. There are 5 books and some additional publications as well. What did they want was to open our horizons, to open a window so that we, while incarnated, could have a better view of the nature of ourselves. And what should we do to be better selves, to improve, especially, with this expanding notion that, we are not limited to this 80 years, whatever that we have here, but, we survive all this. And we should not think about only this little, paragraph of our long existence. And, how should we behave, or what should we do to be, more successful, better, more attuned with our long existence that, have to do with a lot of reincarnations. That's the nature of us. So the goal of Spiritism is to help us, immortal spirits, to perform better while in this incarnated life, so that we can, improve ourselves, but not only ourselves. We have a common responsibility of improving Earth. João has mentioned that we are currently a world of trials and atonements, and we should all together improve ourselves, improve Earth, so that it can become, a better class of world, a world where the good, is, I lost the word in English. Prevails. Thank you, João. Prevails over the bad. That's the objective of Spiritism, in my view. If you guys want to add to that, please feel free to.
Is to upgrade the moral content of the human being.
Yes, thank you.
That's from Erastus.
Yeah, João, I was going to wrap up, so but we have some good questions from Sally. She asked first, how does Spiritism view immediate cremation before the 72-hour period that you mentioned? And then she reiterates after the answer that we received, which is there is no problem with cremation, right? But she was asking specifically, is it being done before that 72 hours? Can you answer that?
Yeah, according to Emmanuel, we should wait up to 72 hours to do the cremation. Not because the spirit will feel anything, but to allow the work of the separation to be done by the spirits responsible for the process, to not cause any complications on the process for the separation. It's not that the spirit feels anything, because if the person is too attached to their physical body, and we are afraid they are going to feel the body being burned, they are not. They are unconscious. they will feel, if they are too attached, they will feel other issues. They will have other issues and other problems with the separation between the physical body and the perispirit. But it's recommended to wait for 72 hours to facilitate the work of the spiritual benefactors that are doing the process. But again, if it's done before 72 hours, the spirits adjust. They will know how to adjust. So there is no problem at all with cremation, according to Spiritism. It's actually, a way to free space in cemeteries. But it should wait 72 hours. But if you don't, again, the spirits adjust.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sally, I hear that you said perfect, so we are good. Thank you. Thank you so much for everyone who has watched this live and your wonderful questions today. I learned a lot. So I want to say, please note that anyone who have listened to the previous release of the Initiation to Spiritism will continue in the next weeks. So before the next Q&A, we'll have 4 next lessons with Andrea Marshall Neto from Florida. She's going to talk, I love that topic, by the way, Spiritist view of marriage. Spoiler alert, she'll be talking about 5 types of marriage. Leonardo Vieira from Maryland will talk about the idea of Christian confession and communion, an expansion of that. And then Julio from New Jersey, he's going to talk about reincarnation specifically, right? All the questions and discussions about the concept of reincarnation. Can't wait to hear him talk. And finally, the last presentation that wraps up this group will be from Claudia from California, Claudia Robinson, who will be talking about parents and children in light of incarnation. So the idea of a family unit. So this will be really interesting. I hope you're able to tune in and appreciate everyone being here today, as I mentioned before. And with that, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I would like to put João on the spot again. João, would you mind please saying a final prayer for everyone? I hope you have a wonderful Sunday and a great week.
Thank you. Thank you all. Let us elevate our thoughts. Thank the spiritual benefactors for this wonderful opportunity of being together, of learning the teachings of our Master Jesus, of expanding our concepts, our ideas, our horizons. We ask for the protection of all those that were present here, their families. We extend these vibrations of love and peace to the whole planet, especially those struggling with this difficult war, that they may receive the assistance, the inspiration, the guidance, so we can overcome these difficult times. For those that are going back to the spiritual world, that they may receive the assistance to help them understand, accept, and above all, have faith. We ask for the protection throughout the week, for the assistance of the spiritual benefactors, that we may be all together in our vibrations, in our love for each other, in our love for this planet, for the universe. We thank our Master Jesus once again for his guidance, his teachings. With our hearts full of gratitude, we ask permission to close this study. So be it.